We need to talk about the elephant in the room because the news that just dropped has sent shockwaves through the community. If you have been following the development of the launch edition, you likely saw the headlines or received the update. All-wheel drive, AWD, is officially gone for the initial rollout. Yes, you heard that correctly. If you had a reservation for a launch edition vehicle, the company has made the executive decision to convert all those orders to front-wheel drive automatically. Now, before you rush to hit that cancel button or jump onto forums to vent your frustration, I need you to pause for a second. Stick with me, because while this sounds like a massive downgrade on paper, there is a much deeper layer to this story. When you actually peel back the engineering layers, the physics, and the long-term reliability of this vehicle, I'm convinced that this might actually be the smartest move the company has made yet. In fact, after digging into the specs of the new hardware they are using, I think this bad news is actually a blessing in disguise that is going to result in a better, more reliable, and surprisingly faster car than we initially expected. Let's address the elephant in the room first. Is all-wheel drive gone forever? No. The company has been very explicit that they still have concrete plans to develop and produce an all-wheel drive version down the line. It hasn't been canceled into oblivion, it's simply being postponed. And the reasons for this postponement aren't just about cutting costs, they are about the fundamental laws of physics and aerodynamics. When you look at the unique architecture of this vehicle, specifically that aggressive aerodynamic teardrop shape that gives it such world-class efficiency, you realize there is a spatial problem. The vehicle tapers off so dramatically toward the rear to reduce drag that there is physically almost no room left in the tail. Squeezing a motor, cooling systems, and high-voltage cabling into that tiny sliver of space was always going to be an engineering nightmare. However, the front of the vehicle, that's a different story. The nose cone has ample volume to house a proper high-performance drive unit. And this brings us to the most exciting part of this update, the hardware itself. We now have official confirmation that the vehicle will be powered by the Vitesco EMR3 drivetrain. If you aren't a powertrain nerd, let me explain why this is such a big deal. The original plan involved using in-wheel hub motors. While hub motors are cool futuristic tech, they are also largely unproven in mass-market passenger vehicles. By switching to the EMR3, the company isn't gambling your safety and money on an experiment. They are pivoting to a battle-tested warrior. This specific drive unit is already on the road right now, powering nearly 1 million electric vehicles globally. Think about the magnitude of that data. That is 1 million real-world test cases. We are talking about hundreds of millions of miles driven in the freezing tundra, the scorching desert, in stop-and-go city traffic, and on high-speed autobahns. This motor has seen it all. By adopting this unit, the vehicle inherits that legacy of reliability instantly. We aren't waiting for a startup to figure out the bugs. The bugs have already been squashed by major manufacturers over the last few years. But let's talk about performance, because I know that is what you are worried about. You're probably thinking, I lost 2 motors, so I must have lost all the power, right? Wrong. This is where the numbers get wild. The Vitesco EMR3 is an absolute beast of a unit. Even though we are dropping from 3 motors down to 1, this single inboard motor is capable of outputting 150 kilowatts of power. In traditional terms, that is just over 200 horsepower. Now, 200 horsepower might not sound like a supercar number if you were thinking about a heavy 5,000-pound SUV, but you have to remember the context. This vehicle is engineered to weigh approximately 2,000 pounds, which is incredibly light. When you do the math on the power-to-weight ratio, this thing enters sports car territory. We are looking at a vehicle that is lighter than a Mazda Miata, but has significantly more torque and immediate electric power delivery. I have driven the older prototypes with the hub motors, and those felt quick. But this new setup? I genuinely believe the limiting factor for acceleration from 0 to 60 isn't going to be the motor anymore, it's going to be the tires. This motor can deliver more power than the front tires can physically put down to the pavement before losing traction. You are going to have a vehicle that pulls violently hard with instant torque that pins you back in your seat. The idea that this car will be slow because it's FWD is a complete myth. It's going to be absurdly quick, likely faster than 99% of drivers will ever actually need in a daily driving scenario. There is another massive advantage to this switch that almost nobody is talking about: unsprung weight. In the original design with hub motors, the heavy motors were inside the wheels. That means every time you hit a pothole or a bump, the suspension had to manage the weight of the wheel plus the weight of the motor. That is a lot of mass bouncing up and down, which can hurt handling and ride comfort. By moving the motor inboard, inside the body of the car, the wheels become much lighter. This allows the suspension to react faster to the road, providing a smoother ride and much sharper, more responsive handling. You are trading a theoretical traction advantage for a tangible handling upgrade that you will feel every time you turn the steering wheel. From a manufacturing and safety standpoint, this move is pure genius. Imagine the complexity of running high-voltage orange cables out of the body, along the suspension control arms, and into a moving wheel that is constantly steering and bouncing. That is a recipe for fatigue and wear. By centralizing the motor, all that high-voltage wiring stays safely tucked inside the chassis, protected from the elements and road debris. It simplifies the assembly line, reduces the points of failure, and makes the car significantly safer in the event of a collision. Furthermore, we need to talk about the software. Even though this is an off-the-shelf motor, the company retains full control over the Vehicle Control Unit (VCU) software. This is huge. It means they can tune the personality of the car via over-the-air updates. Imagine buying the car and 6 months later you wake up to a notification that your car has a new snow mode that optimizes the traction control for slippery surfaces, or a track mode that unlocks unlimited power delivery for closed courses. Because they own the code, they can constantly refine how that 150 kilowatts is delivered. Key figures at the company have even hinted in community chats that they intend to never charge extra for these performance unlockables, a refreshing stance in an industry that loves microtransactions. Now, I know the biggest concern remaining is winter driving. I see the comments everywhere. Front-wheel drive is useless in the snow. Let's bust this myth right now. I grew up driving in severe winter conditions, and the reality is that the drivetrain is secondary to the tires. A front-wheel drive car with dedicated winter tires will outperform an all-wheel drive car with all-season tires every single time. It's not even close. Furthermore, look at the weight distribution here. The motor, the passengers, and the battery are all biased toward the front. That means the drive wheels, the front wheels, have a massive amount of weight pushing them down into the snow, giving you excellent mechanical grip. My mother drives a standard front-wheel drive economy car near the Canadian border. She doesn't get stuck. Why? Because she swaps her tires in November. If you are worried about winter, buy good rubber. Do not rely on AWD to save you if you have zero grip. Finally, we have to look at what this means for the timeline. There has been a lot of anxiety that redesigning the car for this motor will push delivery dates back by years, but the evidence suggests the opposite. The P2 prototype, the one currently being built, was designed from the ground up for this specific Vitesco motor. This tells us that the company has been planning this pivot for a long time. This wasn't a panic decision made last Friday. It was a calculated engineering strategy that has been in the works for months. They have parts arriving at the factory right now. They aren't waiting for a new invention. They are bolting in a proven component. If anything, this removes the biggest bottleneck they had, waiting for unproven hub motors to be validated. By using a motor that is already mass-produced, they can scale up production much faster once the assembly line turns on. So where does that leave us? We have a car that is simpler to build, safer to crash, handles better due to less unsprung weight, has a proven million-mile powertrain, and still possesses a power-to-weight ratio that rivals sports cars. I know it's hard to let go of the AWD badge. We have been conditioned to think more motors equals better. But in this specific case, for a hyper-efficient, lightweight solar vehicle, I genuinely believe front-wheel drive is the superior engineering choice. It aligns perfectly with the ethos of the vehicle, maximum efficiency with minimal complexity. I am incredibly curious to hear where you stand on this. Does the reliability of a million-mile motor outweigh the loss of AWD for you? Or is all-wheel drive a deal breaker?